Hello? Hello? Please, I know you can hear us. We are trapped here in the spaces between worlds. It is a wonderful yet terrifying place, and only our voices escape. You can help us. You can let us in before we go mad.
Argiope by Curtiss Christensen. "Which way should we go?" John asked his older brother Tom. Tom, the eldest by 2 years, raised one finger to his lips, shushing his sibling. He listened for any noise indicating the animals they had been searching for all morning. The wind gently rustled the tall yellow grass that surrounded them, but other than that, there was silence. Where did they go? Tom thought, his blue eyes scanning the surrounding area. Far off, beyond a cluster of stubby junipers, the flock of turkeys they had been stalking meandered into a thicket. John noticed them and tugged at his brother's orange vest. Tom, he whispered. "Look over there." He pointed out the turkeys disappearing behind the bare twigs of the thick brush. "Come on," said Tom, as they moved toward the thicket as quietly and quickly as possible. The branches of the bushes seemed to reach out and grab at the boys' clothing. Twisted twigs brushed at the top of their heads. Tom slid the strap of his shotgun off his shoulder and switched to carrying it in his hands to mitigate the snagging. It was about midday, and the sun beat down directly overhead, casting lines of shadows across their path. They should be close now, thought Tom. "Tom, my feet hurt," said John. "Sheesh, John. Quiet. They must be here somewhere." Tom removed a circular turkey call from his breast pocket. He ran the striker over the round slate surface. Friction mimicked the sound of a turkey. There was a reply from just ahead. Tom motioned John to move forward next to him. John's face brightened with eagerness and anticipation. Sudden flapping drew their attention to the skies. A dozen or so of the turkeys became airborne. The two boys took aim, but the birds were too far away for a clean shot. A strange, barely perceptible croak issued from the location of the turkey's takeoff. "Son of a..." Tom started to say. "What happened?" asked John, clearly disappointed at the turn of events. "I'm not sure. Something scared him off." "Do you think that there's some still there?" "I highly doubt it, but let's go check." John nodded in agreement, and they set off for the place where the birds had been. Up ahead, the thicket opened into a clearing. As they stepped into the clearing, Tom sputtered and swatted at his face with one hand. John laughed a little and asked, "What are you doing?" "Damn spiderweb," he replied. There were some oddly colored lumps nearly hidden in the grass near the center of the clearing. Tom went to look at what they were. All the color drained out of Tom's face. "What's wrong, Tom?" asked his little brother as he stepped beside his sibling. Tom said nothing, for what lay in front of him left him speechless. There on the ground were 7 carcasses, shriveled, lifeless, and covered in a white, fibrous mesh. There was no blood, only torn feathers strewn about, and dead turkeys. "Tom?" John asked with distress. "What happened to those turkeys? Tom?" "We have to get out of here." Tom wheezed out the words. All along the line of trees and bushes, the previously invisible webs now stood out, gleaming menacingly in the sunlight. Strange zigzag patterns ran from top to bottom through the center of each web. Sinister-looking spiders hung from the tapestry of razor-thin threads. They were big, on average about 3 inches from the tip of one spindly orange and black striped leg to the opposite. The spiders' heads glared silver. Their abdomens were black and yellow, striped on the sides and spotted on the top. They were so fat, they looked like they were about to pop. John looked at the spiders and burst into hysterical laughter. "What is wrong with you?" Tom whispered, his voice hoarse with urgency. John continued laughing. He wiped tears from his eyes and struggled to remain upright. "Those are garden spiders, Tom. You're such a pussy." As he spoke, some of the spiders crept down from their webs. "They're completely harmless." The spiders were now hidden in the grass. "Even if one bit you, and that's a big if, it wouldn't even do any harm," John continued. Tom whimpered. The grass rustled, but this time Tom was sure that it wasn't the wind. "They're not venomous," John said, oblivious to anything but the knowledge that he knew something his older brother didn't. "Not to humans, at least. You know, this is probably some prank. I told Henry that we were going. I knew those dead turkeys looked fake. Henry must have made them out of—" Boom! John was interrupted by the sound of Tom's shotgun. John clasped his hands to his ears and noticed why Tom had shot. In every direction around the boys, the harmless spiders encircled them, lumbering inward. Tom pumped his shotgun and prepared to fire again. John stood frozen, shocked by the uncharacteristically aggressive actions of the garden spiders. He was snapped out of his stupor by a second shot. The body and right legs of a nearby spider disappeared, leaving a twitching pile of severed appendages. John fumbled to release his own shotgun from where it was strapped over his shoulder. "Move!" shouted Tom, and he pushed John out of the way and blasted another spider into non-existence. Other spiders, still in their webs, seemed to react to the commotion and dropped to the ground. John had his shotgun free and proceeded to aid in the fight for survival. "Back where we came from!" Tom yelled at his little brother. Tom reloaded his shotgun, and the two ran for the trail in the thicket that had led them to this arachnid-infested nightmare. The entrance to the trail was already covered in web, the zigzagging pattern woven clumsily through the middle. 3 of the ugly spiders were putting the finishing touches on the barrier. Boom, chick, chick, boom, chick, chick, boom. Tom shot each one, tearing 3 holes through the web. John was shooting at the horde of spiders advancing from the rear. Tom turned to look at his brother. He saw one spider creeping unnoticed toward his little sibling, at a dangerous proximity to John's leg. Tom raised his gun to end the miserable creature's disgusting life. He put the bead on the spider, careful to ensure John's leg was a safe distance away, and pulled the trigger. Click! The sound of the pin striking air made Tom's stomach turn. "John!" Tom screamed. "Look out!" John saw the spider just as it set its front legs on his toe. Reflexively, John kicked, but the spider clung to his boot. John aimed down at the spider in panic. Boom! The shotgun fired. Blood oozed from where John's toes once were. John fell backwards, unconscious. "Shit!" Tom ran to his brother. Hands shaking, he reloaded his weapon with some effort, fired until it was empty again, and threw it to the ground. He woke John by dumping the entire contents of his canteen over his brother's face. John moaned in pain. "John, listen to me. We have to get out of here. Grab your gun. I'll drag you while you try to keep these bastards off us." John nodded, his face scrunched in agony. Adrenaline dulled the pain, but only enough to keep him from passing out again. Tom grabbed the handle of John's pack and yanked him onto the path. The trail was by no means smooth on John's rear end, but he was too preoccupied with fending off the crowd of spiders to notice. Boom! Chick, chick. John had no trouble obliterating large amounts of them, clumped together as they were. Tom was tired, but desperation kept him pushing forward. They were nearly out of the thicket. Tom's outlook brightened. "We just might make it out of here," he thought. The sun shone brightly outside the thicket. Boom! Chick, chick. John shot once more. I think they are leaving," said John. Tom stopped and turned to look down the trail. Blood drops disrupted the brown dirt of the path. The spiders seemed to be retreating for some reason. They had stopped moving toward the boys and were shambling off in random directions instead. "That's odd. Why did they stop?" said Tom. "I don't know. Let's go home. I've got a real bad feeling." Tom started to make his way out of the brush that was still completely enveloping them. Up the path, he saw shadows fall to the ground, flashes of yellow. "Oh no," he thought. John shrieked. The sound pierced the silence, shattering it and the illusion of safety. Tom spun. 2 spiders had dropped onto John, one on his arm and the other on his leg. They were biting viciously through his clothing. John tore them off, tossing his shotgun aside. Tom yelled in surprise as one fell past his ear and onto his shoulder. It dug its fangs into Tom's flesh. Tom yelped and grabbed the thing, hurling it as hard as he could onto the trunk of a tree. It burst and splattered across the bark. Tom grabbed John in both arms and ran for the open area. Thud, thud, thud. More spiders dropped to the ground all around them. Tom shielded John with his own body as spiders landed on his backpack and searched for meaty purchase. He clenched his teeth harder with each wicked mandible that violated his skin. More of them crunched underfoot as he ran with the last reserves of strength. John lost consciousness again due to the branches that whipped and stabbed at his bloody foot. As soon as they were good and clear of that horrible thicket, Tom dropped John, threw his pack away, and flopped on the ground, rolling around to crush any unwanted deadly hitchhikers. He then went to grab John again. He had been jarred awake by the fall to the ground, and tears silently rolled down his cheeks. "Tom, what happened to you?" he said, looking up at his brother. Tom's shirt was ripped, and raised red bumps covered his shoulders and sides. "Never mind that. We are still in trouble here." Even as he spoke, spiders were beginning to emerge from the thicket, once more pursuing their prey. Tom grunted and winced as he lifted his brother onto his back. Fortunately, John was a relatively scrawny boy. Tom, however, was exhausted and starting to recognize the extent of the damage that the spiders had done. They had been trying to suck him dry. He was dizzy now and deathly tired. He managed to continue. The resolve to save his brother carried his feet forward. The sound of the arachnids moving through the grass helped spur him onward, but they began to gain on him as fatigue slowed his legs. "Maybe if we can get to the road, someone will be there. Surely somebody heard the shots and came to investigate," thought Tom, but he was already faltering. His legs were shaking with each step, and his brother was getting heavier by the second. His vision was swimming. It can't be more than a quarter-mile to the road, he thought. John gazed upon his brother's face and was concerned. Tom's skin was pale, and his eyes had a dull look to them. "Tom, are you going to be okay?" he asked. "I'm just tired is all. We are going to get to the road and someone will get us out of here. Just you wait." It was about 5 steps after this statement that he fell to one knee. "Tom, we have to keep going. Get up," John said. "I just need to rest for a sec," Tom replied. "Then I'll be all right." "Just put me down. I'll hop." "It's fine. I've got you." "Put me down now. They're coming." They were coming. They had pursued the brothers all this way and were about to be rewarded for their effort with a large meal. John managed to squirm his way free from his brother's grip and was now crawling toward a tree that he intended to use to pull himself upright. The spiders were nearly upon Tom now. John had reached the tree and drug himself onto his good foot. Tom, too, rose to his feet, the spiders only a few yards away. "John," said Tom, with a hint of sadness in his voice, "I have an idea." "What?" said John, half asking and half knowing what the idea entailed. Tom turned to the spiders that were right at his feet now and said, "Go." Tom stomped at the spiders as they swarmed around him, climbing up his legs. He screamed as they bit wherever they could find a spot to nestle their sharp fangs. John added his scream to that of his brothers, a duet of misery. Tom fell thrashing to the ground, crushing hundreds of the evil things, but legions more swept over him, covering his entirety. Tom ceased to move. John hopped away. He wept, shaking violently from physical and emotional pain. It seemed as though very few of the spiders still followed, as they were too busy engorging themselves on Tom's fluids. Feeling relatively safe, John picked out a large branch to use as a crutch. It was sturdy enough, and John retraced the steps he and his brother had taken this morning to get back to the road. He came upon the road that cut through nature like a massive scar. "It's just a few miles to home now," he thought. "What do I tell Mom and Dad?" He sat down for a moment on a boulder before continuing on in the middle of the road, glancing every now and again over his shoulder. Each time he was relieved to find there was no movement. He saw a truck parked on the side of the road and hobbled there as fast as his good leg would carry him. John failed to notice the webs that covered the trees around him. He reached the truck and opened the cab. Shock closed his throat. Inside the truck were a cluster of spiders, covering what could only be a human corpse. John fell backward as the orb weaver's spiders crawled after him. They enveloped him. The last thing John felt before his consciousness went dark were foul fangs piercing and slurping greedily at his blood. This has been Argiope, written and recorded by Curtiss Christensen for Audio Stories. Thanks for listening.